Welcome to New Game Plus. You might be joining us via Twitch, joining us on Twitch live, might be watching on C31, C44, or listening as a podcast. My name is Cringe, and this week on the show, I'm joined by Jamie, Kart, and Jason.
I've been sitting up straight.
We continue. Why start now?
For the first time, yeah.
Coming up on the show this week, Jason, you've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and spoiler alert, there was a little bit of a save goof.
Look, it's one of those things where, Microsoft buys Bethesda, and then apparently all of the people from Bethesda decide they're going to go work for Ubisoft, because I've been having some Bethesda tier bugs with that game. But that said, I am the bug magnet. If you want to see if your game has any coding issues, send it to me. I'll play
You're
it.
You're a bug catcher, if you will.
I am 100%. But yeah, it's. I still went back to it. So I guess that in itself is a conversation to be had.
Yeah. And Kart, you've been playing Demon Souls, which is kind of a remaster, isn't it?
I would say that a lot of it's a bit hard because a lot of the game aesthetically is fundamentally changed.
Right.
But a lot of the animations and a lot of what made the original great has been retained to try to ensure that authenticity is retained. So this is the remake that is basically developed by Blue Point Games. There were a couple of differences that a lot of people didn't like about Shadow of the Colossus, so they kind of take a bit more of a conservative approach with Demon Souls, but I guess we'll tap more into that later in the show.
Before we get into the rest of the show, let's get into the gaming news headlines of this week. Despite the PS5 and Xbox Series launches looming over the Switch, Nintendo's hybrid has continued to exceed sales expectations. Over 730,000 Switch and Switch Lite units were sold in the US during October, making it the second highest October sales total of any console since data tracking started in 1995. Only the Nintendo Wii had greater October sales, with over 800,000 units sold in October 2008. This makes the Switch the best-selling console in the US for the last 23 months, and Nintendo has said over 68 million units have been sold to retailers globally. Apple has announced the App Store Small Business Program, where it will take a smaller sales commission from developers making less than $1 million a year. The program cuts Apple's commission for these transactions from 30 to 15% and will start from the 1st of January 2021. Apple said in the announcement post that the program will benefit the vast majority of developers who sell digital goods and services on the store and provide more resources to small developers and aspiring entrepreneurs to invest in and grow their businesses in the App Store ecosystem. Along with Animal Crossing's big winter update, Nintendo released guidelines for organizations taking advantage of the game's success. The new content guidelines say that you can't use Animal Crossing, quote, as a marketing platform that directs people to activities or campaigns outside the game. Please also refrain from bringing politics into the game, end quote. Groups that break these rules, Nintendo says, may be prohibited from future business usage of the game. These guidelines come after campaigns in Animal Crossing brought attention to the Hong Kong pro-democracy and Black Lives Matter movements, as well as Joe Biden's Dream Island, motivating citizens to vote in the US election. Jason, you've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is the most recent. You used to be able to call them action-adventure games, but now it's like an action-adventure RPG situation, but it's Viking.
And numbers. Yeah, so look, so since Origins, it's gone a different route. So I would say Unity and what was the one in... What?
Syndicate. Yeah.
Syndicate was the last of the old format, if you will, and probably the last one I played in any like real great measure was probably Unity, and I didn't play heaps of it. 4 was so good that I like, as much as Revolutionary France was cool, it was just at that point the formula was tired. They tried with Syndicate, they tried to mix it up with the 2 Pro Tag, didn't work. Origins comes along, changes the formula entirely, historical tourism, and it does okay. Odyssey comes out, lots of people start to feel the Odyssey thing. It's where they do the whole, 2 protagonists, like you can pick male or female pro tags, all that kind of stuff.
Race,
Yeah, and so obviously it was an interesting setting. This is England in, I want to say, between the 8th and 11th century AD, and I can't pinpoint it. I'm sure if I research, I'm sure if I really look, but it's got to be before William the Conqueror, because the Normans haven't taken over, because it's all Saxons. And it's got to be after like 850. So it's in that 200-year window. If I'm wrong, send an email. I mean, it just means you're a nerd, but that's okay. Yeah, but like some moral stories. You're from Norway. You're a Dane, and like a lot of other Danes in that area, you're going to England to test to make your fortune, kind of thing. And so, while it's not as interesting as ancient Greece, like ancient Greece always has that that mythos attached to it, where the cradle of civilization, and not cradle of civilization, that's Africa, but more like of like philosophy and stuff like that. So there's a lot of that ties to that, especially when you start looking at Western cultures. This is the different boroughs of England, and so while it's technically less interesting, it did teach me more about that region than I knew previously. He plays Eivor, who is going there with his brother Sigurd. Sigurd is not his real brother; it's his kind of adopted brother, if you will, because his parents got killed in a Viking raid, and it turns out that the guy who killed them is from the evil order that the assassins are facing. And at this point, the assassins aren't even called the assassins, because I'm pretty sure they take that name with Altair, which is in like the Crusades, so that's like the 1100s. And so, it really is fleshing out not only these different parts of history, so the historical tourism is there, but also expanding out the assassin mythos. And I mean, it's still tied to the Animus, but that so rarely comes up. Everything about the game is Ubisoft formula. It's formulaic down to its core, but it works because they've tightened the formula up, and combat feels good. Obviously you do a lot of it, so it kind of has to feel good. It's very simple. Again, you can see where they've, not to be that guy, you can see what they've taken from the Soul series a bit, with the way they do stamina and the way they do like knockdown, and you can backstab and all. So they've definitely stolen these elements. Not to imply for a second that it plays it's as difficult as the Souls game, or that the movement isn't way more in line with, say, a Bayo or something like that. But it's way more about just all these bits and pieces, all these spinning wheels that's put together and made work. And as a general rule, the game works. It's good. It's fun. I went back to it after losing 10 hours, so I must have at least enjoyed some of my time with it.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla is out now on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and streaming platforms for anyone watching in the US. Stick around with us here on New Game Plus TV. We've got more video game goodness coming up in just a little bit.
Hey, it's Megs, and with me tonight for another interview highlighting amazing people in the Australian scene that are doing big things to make the gaming industry even better here is Jarrod Farquhar-Nicol. He won a Rising Star Award for GCAP 2020, which wrapped up just over a month ago now. And essentially, he was recognised for his amazing efforts helping other people as well as himself to get to where they want to be within the local scene. It was really stiff competition, which actually resulted in 2 people taking home awards, which also was Meredith Hall from Film Victoria. So congratulations, Meredith. And here with me today is Jarrod Farquhar-Nicol, Community Manager and Team Leader for the Game Plus Working Space. Great name, by the way. Both Meredith and Jarrod won because they've been amazing brand ambassadors for the industry who've consistently provided assistance, advice and connections for those looking to enter the industry or those even working in the industry. So welcome, Jarrod, to New Game Plus. How does it feel to be on the virtual couch where you would be in a studio, technically, if we weren't in COVID times? Yeah, how are you going tonight?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Going really well. Yeah, it's very excited to be chatting with you tonight.
Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to it, especially to talk all things GCAP, and I'm getting some massive FOMO for the con season that we all we missed this year. But how on earth has ISO been for you, and what have you been up to?
Yeah, it's been such a super interesting year, especially working heavily in the events industry and co-working industry. Those are really face-to-face events a lot of the time. The industries a lot of the time. So co-working, running the Game Plus co-working space here in Canberra. We've got a space in Adelaide and Sydney as well. That's been interesting because we've had a lot of our we've had various levels of needing to work from home. In Canberra, restrictions have been a bit less, but it's been interesting sort of ramping up into some online events, and we've got a new flexible membership, so people are like still connected on Discord while they're at home. So that was really, really nice being able to actually stay connected with everybody despite some people needing to work from home, and our space actually provided space for people who normally worked somewhere else, but those places closed down, but we still could social distance enough to provide for them. So that was really nice as well.
I love that you've been able to be agile on a really quick pace to accommodate for the things that the industry actually thrives doing, is just sitting at home and playing games. So that's really fun. Can you please tell me about Game Plus? I actually had never heard of it until you won the Rising Star Award, and now that I've done a deep dive about it on the website and seeing how many studios you have, I can't believe there's not more of these out there. When did you first join the team?
Yeah, so I'm glad the award's getting it out there a little bit more. That's great.
Exactly.
We started in September 2016, and that's when I joined as well. So started in Canberra. We're a project of the Academy of Interactive Entertainment, the AIE. So that started in '96, but Game Plus started in 2016.
Right.
So we've been Game Plus and me working with Game Plus been around for 4 years now, and after our first year, we started up a space in Adelaide, and then after that, and the success of the Canberra and Adelaide spaces, started up a space in Sydney as well. So it's been really cool doing that, and like I say, doing the flexible membership to bring on people who are not always needing a dedicated desk, or may not be able to have the funds available for that, or they might not be in one of those cities, so they can still join people and all connect online.
So you mentioned before we started recording that it's actually non-for-profit collaborative workspace. So that's fantastic. How do you keep people coming through the doors, and how long do people generally stay and use the space for? What's the life cycle of a general tenant?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. We kind of developed as an answer to students then going through game development courses, and then trying to sort of kickstart their career, and maybe they don't want to join a huge studio, or there might not be that opportunity. So where is the industry? Like having the industry an actual hub there where they can go, and we can have people who just graduated from AIE working just outside the doors of Mighty Kingdom, who've got more than 70 people in their team, and making booming. Huge games, booming, growing bigger and bigger and bigger. We met them when they were about 35 people, and they came on board as an anchor tenant for our Adelaide space. And
no kidding.
They would have reached capacity at their current space, and that's how we like to do it. We partner with someone who's kind of in it for the long term with us, and shares that vision of connecting and supporting people in the industry to together grow a thriving games industry, and that that works through graduate programs and supporting each other, and just being really collaborative. So that helps bring those people in.
I guess my final question for you, Jarrod, actually is more about how people can get into a similar line of work to you, or people that want to make the jump to the scene in some capacity, maybe in a just similar role to events, team management, if they've got the people skills like yourself. What would you say to them to want to take their job to the next level? Yeah,
that's a good question. And with the indie nature of the games industry, especially in Australia, I think there's a lot of room for that. I think if people see a problem, or even better, see a solution that just isn't happening, there are some really cool initiatives like Accessibility Unlocked, like seeing a need, and you can, anyone can make a website, anyone can have a Twitter. If you've got the drive and the time to do that, you can start doing that and connecting people. But I really think that networking is a really strong one. Finding people who share a passion for the same idea as you, and not an echo chamber, but people who can support that idea and bring different skills and different, bring diversity and different backgrounds and perspectives to it. I think that keeping yourself involved in the industry through checking news sites and following places like IGA, so that you're keeping a lot of people keep involved in hey, here's what games are launching, but that's the consumer industry, the dev industry as well, keeping your hand on the ball in that one as well. So you can understand the happenings of the industry. And one of the ways that I got into this too, I ran my own business for a bit. No, not in game dev. I have done game dev previously, but By the end of that, I think it's about knowing yourself as well. By the end of that, I was like, I don't want to program every day. I do like drawing. I don't want to do any of this all day. I want to help other people do what they want to do. So getting involved in your local game dev communities like CanDev or any of the IGDA meetups, those are really good. See if you can lend a hand, help people out. The Adelaide Game Developer Talks is another great one to get involved in. You don't also need all the answers. You don't need to position yourself as, I'm the one who has all these answers. You can be the one who maybe knows someone who might have the answer.
Exactly.
And then the more you do that, the more you go, oh yeah, definitely talk to this person. They can get you hooked up with that, and practicing that, and you'll get better at public speaking and team leadership and community through doing all that sort of stuff as well. So if you can kind of safely throw yourself in the deep end a little bit, and find people who can support you in that, and you can support them, then I think that's a really cool way to do it.
That's very wise advice. I love it. I think a lot of people I've interviewed and spoken to have come from non-endemic backgrounds as well to, I guess, upskill naturally in things that, I guess, normie jobs teach you, and then, applying your passion and your specialist to a field that you love to, I guess, get to that place, to the next level. So I love that a lot. It's really wise advice. So finally, Jarrod, where can people follow you and your progress and the next steps for your career now that you are officially a rising star?
Thank you. Yeah. Look to the skies.
Yeah.
So,
you had to. That's fantastic. I think you earned that one. So yeah.
Probably the best way to find me is I'm on Twitter at JarrodFN. So that's JarrodFN. But most of what I'm doing, you'll find at the Game Plus Twitter, which is and Game Plus website. So the Twitter is work at Game Plus. And the Game Plus website is gameplus.com.au. And one of the things you'll see me doing, me and my colleagues doing, in the recent past, and as we continue on, is a new thing we're doing called Game Plus Unmuted, which is kind of like this, interviewing people in the industry. We're amplifying people's voices, so we're sort of giving our members priority there, but we're also highlighting just really cool people from around the industry. We talked to Mighty Kingdom about their rebrand and how smaller developers might learn from that. Where we're talking to small and large developers and people connected in the industry. So that's kind of an ongoing thing where you can get in touch and catch up with us. But follow us on gameplus.com.au. All our socials are there, and that's where we'll see what's happening.
Thanks, Jarrod. That's legendary. I really appreciate your time tonight talking all things game dev and GCAP Rising Star. So all the best with everything, and can't wait to follow your progress.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Back with us here on New Game Plus TV, live on Twitch. You might be joining us on C31, C44, or listening as a podcast. I'm Cringe, here with Jamie, Jason, and Kart. And Kart, Demon Souls was originally a PS3 game?
It was a PlayStation 3 game that came out, I'd say, probably about roughly a year and a half or 2 years after the console's initial release. While it was celebrated within niche circles, it was a game that was, I guess, lauded by many, but not played as many as one would hope, until obviously the avenue of Dark Souls, which eventually picked up a lot of steam and became the phenomenon that it is today. And Sony decided to approach Blue Point Games, known for a lot of their probably one of the best remaster studios out there. And they've decided to rebuild the game from the ground up, but retains a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the feel that made the original so great. Demon Souls is a well-revered hardcore RPG from celebrated studio From Software, which basically serves as the spiritual successor to their previous dark fantasy franchise, King's Field, which came out over the course of the tenure of the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2. And it also eventually would become the blueprint for the widely successful Dark Souls trilogy, Sekiro, and potentially Elden Ring down the line. You play as an avatar who's thrown into a state of disarray in the kingdom of Boletaria, where demons have awoken, naturally, and culled a good portion of humanity to feed on their souls. Not only that, but the souls of men become a commodity for even humans in order for them to live and survive. So, very similar to like little influences from stuff like Logan's Run, a lot of other science fiction and stuff like that. And for those who don't participate in, murder or opportunism, they are doomed to perish, and their memories becoming sustenance for those who have stronger wills to survive. So very much like Dark Souls, it does take that dark fantasy setting and kind of cranks it all the way up to 11, and does offer a very bleak universe to explore, maim and murder, and do all sorts of other things. So in the game, the titular souls are seen as a catch-all currency that enables you to level up your character, buy, upgrade, repair equipment, even learn spells, and much more depending on how you want to kind of carry yourself through the game. Throughout the game itself, you do progress through winding levels of varying difficulty while fighting bosses and proceeding in non-linear fashion via a hub world, where the game kind of lets you tackle worlds and the fights in whichever order you please. So think of something along the lines of like Mega Man, even some of those other kinds of hardcore RPGs where it's like the game doesn't really tell you which way to go. You just kind of get a feel for it and then go from there and play by ear. For the most part, it's pretty good. I don't think it's the killer app that Sony are expecting it to be. Because
I was going to say, because like on PS5 launch, there's not a lot of exclusives. Like the big one is Miles Morales, but it's on PS4 anyway.
Yeah.
If people are like impulse, put a deposit down on the PS5 and committed and was like, what am I playing on this now? You mentioned the dark and light alignment earlier, and the light alignment kind of plays more to if you're up for like more grinding but less, I guess, intense confrontations, that you can kind of play that way. But when people think of a Souls game, it's quite intimidating, it's quite confronting. Does that game mechanic, again, not make it easy, but with all of the other adjustments and the other tweaks to fairness, do you think that kind of opens it up to people that might have looked at Souls games before and said, I probably don't have, I'm not tempered enough to deal with this?
I think the best part about this as well is that you can go and play the game in offline mode as well. So if you find that most of the areas that you're exploring, there's plenty of people like kind of making it harder for you by turning the world tendency to dark, you can always just switch the game offline, and then only your actions will basically determine what will happen in that environment. So you can always switch it off if you want to. If you don't have PlayStation Plus, you can always play offline, and your actions will basically will pretty much affect what happens and goes on in the world. So it's not necessarily always out of your control, but it all depends on if you want a more insular experience or a more collaborative experience. The game, it still at least gives you that choice where I think that's probably one of the main reasons why a lot of the other games later on, like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, opted for a bit of a more, I guess, different way that the world works. Where I still think that Demon Souls, like kind of world tendency system, is such a really cool mechanic, and I hope one day maybe with the Elden Ring or something like that, they do end up exploring that down the track, because I still think that's such a really good example of like emergent game design, particularly from like a collaborative online front that doesn't necessarily just involve like multiplayer or whatever. So I really hope that they do that. But for people who don't want to engage in that, and they feel that Demon Souls is already enough of a daunting experience offline, they still have that opportunity to switch off the internet and just play it by themselves and have that more insular, isolated experience.
Demon Souls is out now on PS5 only. Thank you for that review, and that brings us to the end of the show for this week. Thank you for joining us at home. If you are watching us on C31 or C44, check out the podcast and our show on Twitch, because you're watching a 25-minute version of the show, and we've been recording for about an hour and a half, so you're missing quite a lot of content. On YouTube, youtube.com/NewGamePlusTV, you can see the full interview with Jarrod Farquhar-Nicol, I believe his name was. And you can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NewGamePlusTV. The website is newgameplus.tv. Jamie, Jason, and Kart, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Home. Thank you for hanging out with us this week, and we'll catch you next time.